Okay, so this is Todd Atkins, and I'm here with Matt Hamilton, one of the guys who really got into the sport pretty early after the UFC first started. I first saw him in 1999, I believe it was in Hawaii, and maybe kind of for people that aren't familiar with you, kind of introduce yourself a little bit.
Yeah, man, I'm not too good at that because I kind of feel like in today's social media age, everybody's more of a nobody than they'd like to, be. Everybody thinks they're a little more important than they are. But yeah, man, I'm one of the co-owners of Westside MMA. Like you said, I had my first fight probably shortly after the UFC got started. I had a few amateur fights, and then I made my pro debut out in Hawaii. Um, Man, Todd, you're going to have to, one of the things with finding out how old we are, I'm not wearing glasses, which I probably should be. So I'm going to move this phone a little bit away from my face so I can actually see it. So it's going to make me look even smaller than I am. So, yeah, but I've had a few fights, probably won some fights that I shouldn't have won, and lost a few that I'd like to hope that I shouldn't have lost. And, at least folks thought I could fight for a little bit.
Now, how did you end up debuting in Hawaii? I mean, Super Brawl of all things.
Yeah, so there was, back in the day, about the only MMA news you could get was the old Full Contact Fighter, website and newsletter. And I saw a thing. I'd had about, I don't know, about 3 or 4 amateur fights, just real local stuff. And I saw this advertisement that Extreme Challenge and Super Brawl. And man, I'll be honest with you, I actually forget the name of a couple of the other shows. I think one of them was based out of like Amarillo, Texas, or somewhere like where Evan Tanner came up with. And I forget what even the name of it was, but they were kind of getting together and doing these qualifying tournaments to then have this extreme challenge that Monty Cox was putting on. They were doing an amateur national championship. So I was young and dumb at the time, and I thought, man, you mean a weight class at 135? Nobody in the world can beat me in my own weight class. I really was naive enough to think that. And Super Brawl was doing a qualifier in El Paso, Texas. So, man, I bought a plane ticket and went to El Paso, Texas to fight. And I ended up, nobody else showed up at the 135 division. And then one other guy showed up for 155. So I fought him and beat him, got to go to this national championship up in Davenport, Iowa, ended up winning that tournament. And at the end of the night, they were giving out, part of the thing of just the prize for winning was you would get a pro contract or a pro fight. And there was, Extreme Challenge, Super Brawl, like I said, the other show that I forgot the name of, which was I think in or not El Paso. I forgot. Anyway, and then there was another one that was out of Indianapolis. Well, they drew names for each of the guys that won the division, and me and I forgot who else. We got first pick, so of course we picked Hawaii. So got to go to Hawaii. So it was just a couple of fights and some dumb luck to win a draw.
Now, kind of talk about you come to Hawaii and you're kind of dealing with Super Brawl. How was that? Like the trip over and all that stuff?
It was really interesting. It was a first off, it was a great opportunity because I got to take my parents with me and got to fight in Blaisdell Arena in front of, pushing 20,000 people. That was a really cool experience. But, you know, I'm training for this fight in Arkansas with, very few training partners. I'm doing the best I can. And I'm supposed to be getting ready to fight my first time to ever fight somebody officially that weighs 135 pounds. So I'm stoked. I'm like, I'm Godzilla heading towards Japan. I'm fixing to destroy anybody at this weight. Well, I get a call from JT, hey, what do you think about or TJ, excuse me, TJ, hey, instead of this one fight at 135, what if you do a four-man 155 tournament? I was like, well, okay, whatever. And then about a week before I'm getting on the flight, hey, instead of a four-man 155 tournament, what if we do an eight-man 155 tournament? And I was like, well, shit, yeah, whatever, okay. And then, of course, I get out there and I start seeing what really big 155ers look like. I won my first fight, and then the next fight was Ryan Bowe, and Ryan's a super nice guy, but he wasn't at weigh-in. I don't know what that guy weighed, but he looked like he was 175 pounds, and probably by fight time he was, but he just, I remember looking at him at the little stare down before the fight thinking, what the hell have I gotten myself into, man? This guy is humongous, so he ended up beating me and then won the whole thing. So, but what a great opportunity to get to go to Hawaii, fight in such a beautiful arena, a beautiful state, just a beautiful part of the world. I got to see Don Ho with my parents. It was a great experience, and I wouldn't trade it for anything. It was fun.
Yeah, I think the first fight you have was Dane Agbayani, right?
Yeah, and it's so funny. Ryan actually sent me a video of the event, and I talked to Ryan on Facebook months back, and he sent me the event, and I was just like, man, I really couldn't fight. It's like in my mind, I remember, man, I was a tough guy, had a good gas tank and a pretty hard head. But, man, I just looked back and I realized, man, I didn't know what the hell I was doing. I was tough, and I knew probably blue belt jiu-jitsu. And that was it, and so, yeah, when I watched that fight, there were certain parts of it that kind of went the way I thought they were, or thought that they did. But, man, I was just like, holy shit, I didn't know what I was doing.
So, looking back on those experiences, besides obviously being in Hawaii and seeing Don Ho and things like that, but maybe what were some of the things you learned from that first experience?
Well, I learned that I really did enjoy fighting in front of a lot of people. That was real fun. I had never fought in anything close to the Blaisdell Arena. And it was really fun to kind of get to fight one of their hometown guys. I'd gotten to fight, as the out of town spoiler before, but it was always in front of a few hundred people. It was amazing to do it in front of, well over 10,000. And it was nice to get out there and kind of see, some of the big time people. Pat Militech was out there. It was a funny, and I love Pat Militech. He's a pioneer, great fighter, always been super nice when I see him at the LFA shows. But I do have a funny story on Pat. We were out there at the at Superbrawl, and of course I'd mentioned Full Contact Fighter earlier. Joe Gold was there, and this was sometime the week before the fight, and we were at one of these 24-hour fitness places, and we were just working out, and I was working out with the guy, and I had just learned this what everybody calls the hitchhiker armbar escape now. And it's where you get armbarred, you turn your thumb like you're doing the kind of the hitchhiker motion, and you roll out of it and go to side control. Well, I did it on one of Pat's guys, and the guy was like, "Oh man, how did you do that?" And Joe was like, "Well, man, I'd like to make that our technique of the month and put it in the magazine." And I was thinking, hell yeah, man! Little old me from Arkansas is about to get an article in Full Contact Fighter magazine. And Pat goes, "Oh yeah, man, we do that at our gym all the time. Let me show you." And he ended up with it in technique of the month. And I was like, son of a bitch.
Yeah, as if he wasn't getting exposure already. He had to take it
Yeah,
from
it's like, Pat, throw me a bone, man.
yeah. Joel's still around. He puts stuff out on Instagram, and that footage he has, it still holds up today. He's always putting a lot of his old school stuff out there, and it's still quality, man.
Yeah, man. It's so funny. I was telling some of the younger crop at the gym. I was telling them, I was like, you guys don't understand why I'm so like frustrated by you taking selfies and putting stuff on Instagram and this, that, and the other. I was like, man, in my day, if you wanted to get anything like that, you wanted any kind of fight news, it was literally that like I don't know how often it came out, but it was the VHS, the full contact fighter VHS tape that you would get and, watch little interviews and snippets from the fights. And, man, what a cool time to be around the sport. I tell people I wouldn't trade it. I mean, I wish that I was coming up and I was younger now and could take advantage of all the stuff, all the information, all the good training. But man, I wouldn't trade the coming up in that wild, wild west era of things. I wouldn't trade it for anything.
So, kind of tell me about some of your other experience you had in fighting, because I mean that those are the fights I saw. It was hard to see fights back then. I mean, people probably don't realize, but people that listen to my show know that it was hard to see other events. But maybe talk about some of the other fights you had, or just in general. Not You don't have to get heavy into each one, but
Yeah,
what
for
you enjoyed.
sure. I had a really good time fighting. The shows that I got to fight on were, of course, Superbrawl. I got to fight twice there. Extreme Challenge, which Monty Cox was putting on. Got to win that tournament. And that was something that I was really proud of. Is I was involved in 3 MMA tournaments back in the day and won 2 of them. So, that's something to me coming up being a big Igor Vovchanchyn fan. To me, just the greatest thing is to win a tournament. So I was happy about that. I got to fight in AFC, which is the show that American Top Team was putting on back in the day to kind of push their guys. And I had a great time doing that. Probably the biggest show that I fought on was Shudo in Japan, and I hated that. It was right up there with the one of the worst experiences of in fighting, and it was just because it was a combination of a lot of things. One, they got me over. First off, like you said, you couldn't get a bead on any of the guys you were fighting. You couldn't see tapes. Well, they, as a courtesy, sent me tapes of the guy that I was going to fight. Well, they sent me a tape of a fight where he just starched this guy with a knockout. Well, come to find out, he'd never knocked out anybody else in his life. It was just, and so I've spent the whole training camp, thinking I was fighting Mike Tyson, and he was more of a grappler. So that part sucked. The other part that sucked is they were supposed to get me out there a week early. Well, I get a phone call that says, hey, things have changed. We're going to fly you out on Thursday. So I fly to Japan on Thursday, have to make weight on Friday, and they converted the pounds to kilograms. So I wasn't a good weight cutter anyway, but instead of having to cut to 35, I had to cut to 32 to make up for the damn pound conversion. I had no sauna, nothing. And so I've got to make the weight. Then on top of that, I get ready to fight. I'm so jet lagged, I'm almost nauseous. And I put on my singlet, hell, I was kind of famous, quasi for wearing the pink singlet. I'm getting ready to walk out, and the guy comes in, oh, wear a costume. No can fight in costume. And I'm like, what do you mean I can't fight in a costume? He's like, no fighting costume. So I was like, well, I don't have anything else to wear. And so they end up taking a pair of sweaty, nasty fight trunks off of a guy that just got knocked out putting me in them and marched me right out to fight. And it was a mess. It was awful, and I hated it, and I couldn't wait to get home.
Yeah, I mean, Shuto had a good reputation, but you know, sometimes that's kind of stuff that could happen, especially back then early. You know, a lot of guys would show up and have no corner. I mean, I just talked to Dean Thomas. He said his first time he fought there, he had no corner man. He was by himself. And Ryan ended up cornering him, actually, because,
Oh,
Ryan lived there. And I lived there from 2002 to 2005. So Ryan, I hung out with him a lot. But, yeah, he cornered Dean Thomas the first time he fought because he just happened to be there.
yeah. It was really weird. It was a weird experience. I'm a tiny person. I'm a small guy. And everything over in Japan's like 2 inches shorter. And when people ask me, man, what's it like in Japan? I told them, you're not going to appreciate what I'm about to tell you unless you go there. You're in Tokyo, and at least I was shocked at how many Asian people were there. It's like you go to a big city, New York, Sao Paulo, Rio, you see black people, white people, Asian people, Indian people. When I was in Japan, it was me and everybody else was Asian. And it was almost shocking to see such a homogenous group of people. It was bizarre. And there's nothing's in English. The lady that came and got us from the airport, first off, we went down into a subway and we popped up. And when we popped up, we didn't know where the hell we were at. Nothing's in English. And she was like, I'll come back and get you to go weigh in. It was just, I wish I would have won and could have felt some of that Japanese love that was, it's kind of their legendary for, when you win, they love you. But, I performed like shit. I was treated like shit. And I went home like a piece of shit, So it was fun. I'm glad I got to do it, but I never wanted to go back.
Yeah, that was almost like a blood sport experience, where they just kind of
exactly.
you're on your own, trying to figure out what's going on.
Absolutely, and luckily I got to experience that, just like you said, blood sport. And in 2000, I got to go compete in Abu Dhabi, which was just like blood sport. So, I got to have some really cool adventures in the martial arts. So I've got nothing to complain about. I had a great time.
Now, I was talking to Roli the other day, and when he mentioned that you were his business partner, I was like, what? That guy's still around? Like I didn't even know. So how did you end up catching up with him in that project?
Well, Roli was my student for a while. He came in and started training with me when I was kind of starting to get going as a pro. Roli came in. He was about 15 or 16 years old, and man, what a testament to stick-to-itiveness. When Roli first got started, he was terrible. I mean, but we used to make jokes about how bad he was and how he still wanted to train with the guys that were good, but he was terrible. But man, over the years, he got so good and got to where, he far surpassed me, and he was just great. Well, I was teaching at a taekwondo school, and Roli, like I said, was a student there. And we had fought together some, and, had kind of developed a friendship. And we were out at a bar one night, and I said, man, I think I'm going to quit and I'm going to open my own gym. I was like, the problem is, man, it's like I ain't getting paid nothing. I was like, I ain't got no money. I don't have any money to open a gym. And he was just like, man, I'd invest in you. He was working a real job, and I was being the karate bum. And he's like, well, I'd invest in you. And I was like, well, and we just kind of started talking, and things just kind of snowballed. Next thing you know, we opened up a gym, and within a couple of years, Rolly quit his job and was teaching at the gym. When we started it, I was teaching full time, and uh, within a few years, like I said, he had quit his job, and Westside MMA just kind of took off.
And what year was that?
That was 2006, and man, it was a rough week. I quit my job at the Taekwondo school. I closed on a house, and we opened the gym all in 1 week, and it was a stressful damn week.
Yeah, that's something you can do in Arkansas. You probably couldn't have closed in, some of these other places.
Yeah, man. And that's the thing too, is with all the traveling that I'm so thankful. Without fighting, I wouldn't have seen the world. Thanks to fighting, man, I've been to Abu Dhabi, I've been to England, I've been to Germany, Brazil, Japan, Hawaii, all over the world. And I know it will sound crazy to most people, but man, I'm always glad to get back home, man. I love Arkansas.
Yeah, I mean, you probably couldn't have closed on a house, is what I'm saying, because of the house prices. Like
Oh
Arkansas,
yeah,
that's somewhere where you could close on a house and open a gym and be able to do it.
folks don't understand when they see the house prices in Arkansas. It's people that are buying houses for like $250,000. If you get a house in Arkansas that's $250,000, you're in a big damn house, in a nice house, in a nice neighborhood, or you're out in the country with a shit ton of land.
So, what students did you have? I mean, you have Bryce Mitchell now in the UFC, but you started in 2006. Did you have any other people that you kind of remember?
Yeah, I do. When we opened, we started the gym with about 20 students, and they were mainly students that, when I left the other gym, I was teaching the majority of the classes, and the most of the fighters and stuff came with me. And this is a name you'll probably remember as a blast from the past. Do you remember Seth Kleinbeck?
No, I don't recall him.
Okay, well, Seth he was kind of hot there for just a little bit. And then injuries just ate him up. He had gotten an offer to fight in the UFC, and we turned it down because he was dropping to middleweight. They gave him an offer to fight Alessio Sakara back in the day at light heavy. And in retrospect, we probably should have took that fight because Sakara looked like crap and got knocked out in that fight. But we turned that down, and then Seth ended up fighting on Elite XC and won a couple of fights there, and then lost a fight, caught a real nasty cut fighting Kyle Noak out of Australia. They had a good fight going, and Kyle landed a really nasty elbow that got the fight stopped. But yeah, Seth was like the first big time person out of Arkansas to hit it big, for the time. And then Roli, shortly after we opened, went to the Ultimate Fighter, and I felt bad for Roli on the Ultimate Fighter. He didn't look. First off, the show was edited to make him look like a jackass, and that's not the case. And then man, what a weird situation to be out there in all the fights Roli had in the Ultimate Fighter. They were close enough that he needed a good corner man, and he could have won those fights with some small adjustments. And it's not like Nogueira is not a great MMA mind, but when your corner doesn't really speak English, it's like you've got Minotauro, Nogueira, you've got Anderson Silva, you've got some of the highest fight IQs in the world in your corner, and they don't really speak English. So Roli had a rough hand that was dealt to him on the Ultimate Fighter, and then we had another few guys that could fight. guy Mark Wiggins, who was just on the local level. He went like 5-1 as a pro, but you know, the bread and butter for our gyms has always been just professional people that want to train and don't really want to fight. So, that's what allowed us to do this for a living and not just kind of be a flash in the pan and train a few fighters and then end up getting real jobs and growing up like normal folks.
So tell me about when Bryce Mitchell comes along. I mean, I talked to Roli about this a little bit, but I'd like to hear your insight on what you remember when you first saw him.
Well, when I first met Bryce, it's been years and years ago. It, you know, I didn't think anything that out of the ordinary other than, hey man, this kid's tough. He's a tough kid. As the years went on, you're like, as I remember, Bryce had a pretty long amateur career, and I kept thinking, man, sometime this kid ought to go pro. He's pretty damn good. And his coach just, kept having reasons not to turn him pro. But, and of course, those guys were 45 minutes away from us, so it wasn't really my concern. But as the years went on, then Bryce turned pro, and we would see him more and more often. He would come by the gym to cross train and stuff like that, and you start kind of going, man, he's not just a tough kid; he's getting really damn good, and it's funny because I can't say this about anybody else that I can think of, but I can actually remember the last time I tapped Bryce out. I can remember where it was, what the circumstances were, and I remember it because, it's never even gotten close to happening again. And over the years, Bryce's coach kind of got out of the game. He still goes to the UFC with Bryce and coaches him and whatnot. But, Bryce comes in up at West Side. He's literally like a savant. He does things that are, if anybody else trained with some of the ways that Bryce trains, you would be just telling them, don't do that. That's silly. But Bryce makes it work. And when you ask him why he does something, he's got a reason for it. He's like a savant with technique. When he sees something, it's a part of his game. He's really, it's almost like somebody that can read music or, play music by ear. He sees something and it's his, and he's got this really bizarre. It's almost like how you were when you were a 16, 17-year-old kid. You would do stupid stuff, and it was because you just didn't know any better, and you didn't fear things. Like when I was a kid, there's some cliffs over here at a lake that they've since blocked off because people were getting hurt. But I would jump off those cliffs because I was young and dumb and didn't know any better. And now, with wisdom of age and not having the T levels probably anymore, there's no way I'd jump off of them. And that's kind of what Bryce is like. Bryce he's not afraid of anything. He's not afraid to try stuff. He just, and it probably comes down to belief in self-confidence that he can do that. But yeah, he's got the best mindset of any fighter I've been around. Bryce has the best mindset, and you add that in with what I almost think of, like I said, like a savant type ability to pick up technique, and he's special, man. He's really special.
Now, he's able to make ground fights work, like he's almost like the fighters we saw back when you started fighting, where guys, that was their strategy. They were going to get it there sooner or later. and make it work. But now we really aren't seeing that a lot. It's almost like he's unique, in
I,
a way.
yeah, and isn't that strange? It, it went from all the grapplers wanted to get just enough stand up so that they could look comfortable on their feet. And then it kind of turned into now everybody's trying to become a kickboxer. And the odd thing about Bryce is he's actually got good stand up. It's just as unorthodox as his grappling is, but it's really good. And Bryce just gets fights on the ground because he's just told me before, man, I'm not that smart. I don't want to get any head trauma and be less smart. That's just the easiest way. Bryce is almost kind of like a Floyd Mayweather. He's out there to win fights, not take damage, and get paid. And he's really good at it.
But why do you think we're seeing less and less of that? Why is he able to make this work and other guys just don't want to? Or I mean, I know the Khabibs, the Dagestanis still have that in
Right.
them, but most American fighters don't have it in them anymore to do it.
You know what? That's something I was talking to my boxing coach about. I work cuts for the main guy that I work cuts for is a guy Calvin Henderson. He's an up and coming super middleweight. He's undefeated right now. And on some of these road trips, we were kind of talking about MMA fighters versus boxers and stuff. And part of what I think leads to what you were talking about is there's a lot of fighters, and I try to weed it out of the fighters that I work with, but a lot of MMA guys they approach the sport almost like an extreme sport, like snowboarding or skateboarding or something. They're in it for the adrenaline, and I tell my guys, under absolutely no circumstances do I want you trying to win fight of the night bonuses. Because fight of the night just means neither one of you two has any defense. You beat the shit out of each other. That's not what we're here to do. We're here to hit, not get hit, and win fights. And I think so many of these guys, look at how many fighters you see nowadays that when they have an interview with them, oh man, I don't care if I win or lose. I just want to go out there and put on a show for the fans. Well, hell, if that's what you want to do, that's fine. But that's not the way I want to coach guys. And Bryce has taken that to heart. Like I've seen Bryce get out and get to spar in hard rounds in the gym. And Bryce is in no way a quitter, not at all. He can go for days. But if he's getting hit too much, he'll just go, hey, coach, I'm getting hit too much. I'm going to go grapple now. He's got that mindset that he's here to finish you, take very little damage, and move on. Where I think so many of these other people, they want to be exciting. And what's great about Bryce is he's found a way to do both. I mean, he's very exciting, even when he's not getting, he hasn't gotten hit that much in any of his UFC fights. And he's exciting as hell.
But I mean, you see some wrestlers that maybe they're more accomplished than Bryce. But if the takedown doesn't work once, maybe twice, they're done trying it.
And that is something that I do not understand. You know what? Let me take that back, Todd. I think I do understand it. When you see on social media, one of the things that I see as a coach that sometimes starts to bother is not the right word, but I see it as a problem, is you'll see people, man, I got to be growing. I got to be growing. If you're not growing, you're dead. If you're stagnant, you're dead. Well, that's all well and good, but sometimes you got to dance with who brung you. It's like if I'm an All-American wrestler and I find out I've got a big right hand, okay, throw it a few times, but man, let's get back to wrestling. Let's remember what got us here. And I think a lot of these guys, man, they want to grow. Like I remember when I first started learning some wrestling, I had fights where I would take people down with a double and then just lay chest to chest on them and win a decision. When I look back and go, man, I could have submitted that guy in 2 minutes. When someone is growing, they tend to, you can usually see it in their fight. I could look back in my fights and say, okay, I was working at a boxing gym more here. I was working my wrestling here. And I think what happens is you get some of these guys that are very good wrestlers. Now, sometimes you just get two guys that are really good at takedowns and takedown defense, and it forces a stand-up fight. And that's a different situation. But I think a lot of these guys, they want to grow and they want to show that their skill set is getting more well-rounded, and they're more concerned about being well-rounded and being having this diverse skill set that they kind of forget about their strengths, And I think more of the high-level wrestlers, I'm not Tyron Woodley's coach, but I got a funny feeling he would have probably been better, especially towards the end of his career, if he was getting back to what got him here in the first place.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're seeing it across the board, with the exception of the Dagestanis and guys like Bryce. You really aren't seeing it very much from other. There's a few outliers, but it seems to be a pattern.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing is too with Bryce is you've got to have a certain level of gas tank to make that type of style work. Now, of course, depending on how you're wired, it could take more out of you to get out there and fake some stand up a little bit. But Bryce has a phenomenal gas tank, and he's deceptively strong, and with the long arms. I mean, he's built, everything about Bryce is built for how he likes to fight. It's, if he didn't have arms as long as he's got, if he didn't have that crazy gas tank, maybe that style wouldn't work for him. But what's special is his mindset and his body. They fit together perfectly, and that's what allows him to be so special. When I was coming up, I was really aggressive, but hell, I didn't have any knockout power. It's like all the things I like to do, my body, with the exception of as a young man, had a good gas tank. There was nothing special about me. With Bryce, it all comes together, and he really could be a UFC champion. Absolutely.
Now, he doesn't have any bouts signed at the moment, does he?
I don't think so. Let me be very clear. I'm not Bryce's manager. Roli coaches him more than anybody at the gym. The extent of my coaching to Bryce Mitchell is he'll come up to me in the gym and go, "Hey, Coach Matt, what do you think of this?" And I'll either go, "Man, that's awesome," or "I don't know about all that, man." And, Bryce is super respectful to me, but I would be lying if I said I had anything to do with his success and his awesomeness.
Yeah, so you don't know when he's fighting next or anything, right? I don't think they have any. I haven't heard any news.
He broke that first metacarpal in his last fight, so he's still recovering from that. So I don't think he's even looking right now for he's been the last few weeks, he's been getting back in the gym a lot more, and he's been training a lot more. So I don't know what's in store for him.
Because I know Roli was saying something like he prefers to take 6 months in between fights, which again is a little unique.
Man, yeah, dude, he's so weird about that. It's like I don't know, like that Charles Rosa fight he had. He could have fought the next weekend, and I don't know why he doesn't want to, but he doesn't want to. And if Dana called him up and said, "Hey, man, we're going to give you a title fight in Dubai. Are you ready to get on the plane?" He'll go, "No, I don't want to fly over there. Let me know if you want to do it in Vegas or you want to do it in Memphis, but yeah, I don't want to." And he really doesn't care. Bryce is – what's so funny about Bryce is is that character that you see is him. You know, all the stuff you see where he's screaming about Arkansas and saying just these most bizarre things, none of that is a show. That is all Bryce. He is just an interesting person.
So, looking at some of the other guys, I mean, not without naming any of the athletes, but you feel like he matches up well with everybody that's kind of, in the mix as far as the title contenders go.
I do, because, here's the thing. It doesn't matter what you do. You're going to play Bryce's game. It doesn't matter if you're the best kickboxer in the world. It doesn't matter if you're the best wrestler in the world. It doesn't matter. When you fight Bryce Mitchell, you fight Bryce's game. And he's had off nights. I mean, we all can. But, man, when you fight Bryce, you're going to fight the fight Bryce wants to fight. So it really doesn't matter what the other person's skill set is.
Now, maybe talk about, some of his training at the gym. I know Roli was mentioning that a lot of times he trains people that are maybe a lot less experienced than him, and he just kind of does his own thing. He's not really taking classes and things. He just kind of comes in there and does his work, so to speak.
Dude, Bryce will spar. Bryce will spar, but 90% of Bryce's training is he's got one 55, 60-year-old man that he grapples with. And when it's time to work his stand-up, he'll have Roli hold a karate kicking shield, every now and then some Thai pads, and that's it. I tell all the up-and-coming folks at the gym, watch Bryce, appreciate Bryce, train with Bryce whenever you can, but he ain't good because of what he's doing. He's just special like that.
He only rolls with one guy.
I'd say about 90% of Bryce's training is with an old guy, Danny G. He's about 55, 60 years old, about 120 pounds soaking wet, and they grapple for hours at a time. And about every time you look over there, Bryce is twisting him. But, it's like Bryce is getting, 1,000 hours of twistering somebody. I mean, how can you get that much work in? And, and Danny loves it. Him and Bryce are best buddies. They fish, and Bryce mauls him for, and man, it works. It works for him. It works for him, man. And I've told some of the up-and-comers, I was like, hey, maybe you need to go find you a Danny G. Just go snatch you up some older white belt and just start mauling them for hours at a time. And, man, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe that is the way to do it,
So they aren't related or anything? It's just a buddy of his or somebody he met at the gym?
Just a guy he met at the gym, man. Dude, Bryce is – when I say Bryce is special, I mean special in every way you can think of the word, man.
Yeah, it seems interesting. I mean, how do you deal with that? I mean, I was asking, how do you deal with that as a coach? Other guys are probably watching him and saying, I want to only roll. Why should I do these classes? Why should I drill these techniques?
I think that everybody that's at the gym gets a feel for the fact that there's something not right with Bryce. It's like, and I don't mean that in a bad way at all, but they can all tell that there's something special there, and that his way is not the way. It's the way for him, because, it's like some of these, like a Mozart or something that's composing symphonies at 3 years old. Well, most people that are going to be good at music need to go take music class and learn to read music and stuff like that. But, man, some people have just got that it. And Bryce has got it. Whatever it is, he's got it. And most people couldn't train the way he trains. But it's so bizarre that, he can do that, but that 10% of the time that he jumps in and goes with everybody else, I mean, Bryce can be in our gym and we can have a world champion jiu-jitsu player, world champion no-gi guy, and Bryce can jump on them and they'll quit before he does. I mean, if they do tap him out, let's go again, let's go again, let's go again. And he's just, yeah, man, when you talk about Bryce, you're going to keep saying special until it's, it's cliche, but man, he's just a different breed, man.
But where's he get the stamina if he's just rolling with one guy? Or
Man, it's just he loves doing it. It's like, where does a dog get its speed? It's what he is. And that's what I was trying to explain earlier is he his body and his brain, they all mesh, man. It's the way it's supposed to be. I can't explain the kid. But when he wins the world title, I'll be, oh yeah, he came up at West Side. We taught him everything. I'll steal it and try and make a few dollars off of it. But no, I have no idea. He's just special.
now maybe talk about what you're seeing in MMA today as someone who fought as there, in the late 90s to what you're seeing now. Maybe just your overall thoughts on how things have changed, or maybe some things that bug you, or whatever the case may be.
Well, as far as what I see is, you could tell it back when I was starting to get out of fighting is we all knew the athletes were coming. When I was fighting, it was the tough guys and the guys like me who went to the suburban karate schools and got to learn some jiu-jitsu and were too tough to be doing point karate. And then towards the end of my career, you started seeing the D1 athletes, the guys that, were wrestling, the guys that weren't making it in football, and those guys were creeping in. And some of the folks that maybe were not quite as good in boxing, so they start creeping over. And next thing you know, you've got a lot of high-level athletes in the game, and they're here now. So that's going to make it always harder for just the tough, hard-nosed guy to get by. And it's that way in every sport. You've got your tough guy that works hard, and once in a while we do good, but it's that athlete that wants to dedicate themselves that tend to rule the roost. So that's now not coming. That's here. I don't really like some of the I don't like the rules. I like the old rules where it was, you'd fight a 10-minute round, maybe a 5-minute overtime, 1 15-minute round. I think that was a better mousetrap for an MMA fight than the rounds like we have them now. But man, it's great that there's this many fights. I look back, man, I've got guys coming up now that in a year can get more fights than it would take me 3 or 4 years to get. The only reason I had so many fights, and I didn't have that many, the only reason I got the ones that I did was because of the tournaments that I was able to fight that happened on one night. It's just, there just weren't that many shows. And now, hell, you can have a month where there's 4 shows in Arkansas. So that is great. And I guess the only other thing that I would say that it's kind of been weighing on my mind recently, because we've been at the gym, we've been having more of taking more of an active role in USA boxing. I wish that the MMA amateurs would approach the fighting more like the boxers do. We got amateurs in MMA that are, out trying to get sponsors. They're making promo videos. They're doing all this stuff like they're pros. And it's like, man, just focus on fighting. You get amateur boxers may fight 3-4 times in a weekend at a tournament. They'll fight every weekend during the season. And man, they're worried about getting better. And we've got MMA guys lose one amateur fight and they're feeling like they're crushed, like they've lost their chance. And it's just like, man, you're out here trying to perfect your craft, or you're just doing something to get an adrenaline rush. You shouldn't be beating yourself up and killing yourself over losing an amateur fight. So yeah, everything is positive as far as what I see in the sport, man. It's great, but I think those things are what I would consider not so great about it.
Now, who are some of the fighters that you're paying attention to, or that you have paid attention to in the recent times?
Man, that's a funny question, because I'll get people asking me, hey, what do you think of so and so? And I'm like, man, I don't even know who that is. I'm honestly, Todd, man, I really like. The only people I really focus on are my guys, because I'm passionate about the fight. I'm not really that passionate about the sport, because the sport is kind of different now. You remember what it was back in the day. It was, and I'm trying to not be just too much of an old fuddy-dud, but man, I liked it back when not everybody did it. When guys like you and Jeff Osborne, Miguel, everybody knew everybody, and it was, man, it was just it was a cool time back then. And now it's one of those things, man. It's almost so big and it's so mainstream that and now, all that being said, who do I like? I think the last fighter that I was really like a geeky fanboy of was GSP. I mean, I just appreciated everything he does or did. And as far as now, I don't know, man. Anybody hell, I was a big Frankie Edgar fan. Well, now just when he fights, he's just a shell. He just gets beat up. So I don't even want to watch him fight anymore. I'm really more focused on just the guys that I'm bringing up and their, their journey as fighters and as human beings. And that's what's most important to me. So I know it's kind of a cop out on who I like, but that's just kind of the truth.
As we're kind of winding down the interview here, I was wondering if you had anything that maybe we didn't talk about, or something that you wanted people to know about, or something that was important to you, maybe something martial arts related.
Cool, man. That's put me on the spot. I don't know. I come from a weird time when, like, you just didn't volunteer a lot of information, which is very different than it is now. Everybody's wanting to do a live video and tell you how they think and what they think about something. And so I just always had that assumption of, man, if anybody wants my opinion, they'll ask. So I don't really try and say too much. I guess the answer is, it's a pretty boring answer, but no, man, if somebody's got something they want to ask me, they can always ask me. I don't have, I just don't really think that many people care about just my random thoughts on anything. Hell, I think everybody's martial arts journey is their own. Everybody's black belt means something different. Everybody's fight career means something different. Everybody's, kind of like we talked about Bryce, everybody's training means something different. And, man, just everybody's kind of in life got to get out there and figure out what works for them and just be happy. I know my martial arts journey's made me real happy. It's allowed me to, go a lot of places, meet a lot of good people, and help a lot of people out, all while not getting a 9-to-5 job. And so, shit, man, I'm as happy as I can be for a person that's got punched in the face for a living.
Well, Matt, it was great talking to you, man. You know, part of me doing these shows is I want to kind of connect people from that are into the sport now to people that were there in the scene when it was coming up. So, you know, I'm always happy when I can talk to somebody like you. And, you know, I just really appreciate taking the time.
Hey, man, I really appreciate you asking me. It's nice, you know, when you own a gym that's got, you know, over 400 people that train there, and every now and then people ask me, hey, coach, have you ever fought? And, you know, it's nice that somebody actually remembers it from time to time. So, you know, it put a smile on my face when you asked. So I hope it was not too boring. And shit, man, anytime I can ever be of any help, man, just let me know.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Maybe we can catch up after Bryce fights again or something.
Absolutely, man. Anytime, just give me a shout.
All right, man. I appreciate it. Take care.
Take care, Todd. Good talking to you.